All right, we're going to go for Dan. No pronouns given, calling in from Canada, says that he knows something we don't know about Lucy's footprints. Dan, how are you doing today?
Hey, good. How are you doing?
I'm awesome, man. So what exactly did you want to talk about?
Okay. It's through Genesis apologetics.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Unfortunately.
They were talking about here the Laetoli footprints.
Yeah.
They found some. It's in a book called Contested Bones.
Oh, God, that book.
Yeah.
Don't recommend that one.
No.
10 inches long.
Yeah.
Or size 9.5 shoe size.
Mm-hmm.
And they were saying, well, then Lucy's species
Australopithecus
couldn't have made those footprints.
Yeah. So here's the thing, man. What I hope you understand is that, like, the Laetoli footprints are about 3.5 million years old, right? They're footprints in volcanic ash from a species that lived 3.5 million years ago, which is the time that Lucy's species lived. So there probably aren't specifically her footprints. A lot of times when you get into the media, you know, they're trying to popularize science. They're trying to talk about it. Like, Lucy is like the poster child of this species. She's not a very good specimen. We have a bunch of other specimens from that species that are like way more complete. And here we have evidence in the region of that species, in the time period of that species, that shows bipedal walking. And it's not like temporary bipedalism. The shape of those footprints, the style and the angle and the way they are aligned, like, that shows a commitment to bipedalism. They are always bipedal, just like we are. So let's say Lucy, or even Lucy's species, let's say no Australopithecus was there doing that at all, and this was some other, okay, whatever, it doesn't matter. All this tells us is 3.5 million years ago, something a lot like us and a lot smaller than us was walking on two legs through this area. That's still a heavy indication towards biological anthropology, you know what I mean?
Well, if these are 9.5, size 9.5, that's true. That would be a creature 5'9" approximately.
Maybe, or just a dude with a big feet that's a little bit smaller than us. Who knows? I actually don't remember what exactly, it's off the top of my head. I don't remember exactly what the actual size or dimensions of these feet were. But what I can tell you for sure is that these feet, and here you can actually go to, I encourage everybody to do this. The Smithsonian has an easy thing. It's humanorigins.si.edu. And you can look up all sorts of hominin fossils, all sorts of evidence, all sorts of ways that we know what we know. And they have a whole thing on the Laetoli footprints here. And they go over them. I double-checked before the show to make sure that I could show this. And this is Australopithecus afarensis. I say the right time period. It's the right angle. The curvature of that foot, the inline halix, the big toe being inline and not being off to the side to be an opposable appendage, the stride length, the heel to toe walking pattern, like all of this. It doesn't matter how big or how small it is. Maybe it was a big Australopith. Maybe a guy had big old feet. Maybe it was a different species. Who knows? Like, throw all this away. Take everything we think we know about it and throw it out in the trash. That's fine. What you can say for sure is that 3.5 million years ago, there was an ape that was walking on two legs. And a little while later, you have other apes that are walking on two legs that are a little bit bigger that are able to do cool things like make stone tools. And a little while later, you have other apes that are walking on two legs and making stone tools that are able to control fire. And a little while later, you have other apes that are walking on two legs and they're making stone tools and able to control fire that are sitting here on the screen talking to you today. And there's just a direct chain between all of these things. So again, even if we threw out everything we thought we knew, it's the same thing with any fossil. You know, if I find a fossil of a whale or whatever that's buried down 4 million years into the sediment, throw away everything I think I know. I don't know how to identify bones anymore. I don't know what a whale looks like anymore. I have no proof of anything. What I do know for sure is here's an animal that lived at a different time and doesn't live anymore and looks an awful lot like these other things. It's still really good evidence of evolution.
It's just the size of it. It's 5'9". Like Lucy would say about 3 foot.
Did you not hear anything that Forrest just said?
Sure. Okay. I don't believe you, but I don't care. It doesn't matter.
Would be what?
Let's say it is really big. Cool. So what? What does that do?
It doesn't sound like I think Lucy was some kind of chimp or whatever, but
She was an ape.
probably a knuckle walker.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
110% not that for several reasons. Do you want to start going through them, or do you want to move on from that?
Oh, it was Owen Lovejoy. I think he's the one that.
Are you going to answer Forrest's question or not?
He's Lucy and her species are definitely not chimps, right? So they're about a little less than 5 million years away from our common ancestor with chimpanzees. So way off from there. And she absolutely was not a knuckle walker. Her hips are not positioned properly for that. Her feet are not positioned properly for that. Valgus knee is not positioned properly for that. Her foramen magnum is not positioned properly for that. So, like, very, very no. Like, that, no part of her skeleton even remotely hints at her walking on her knuckles. Like, no. She was an ape. We are also apes. So she is in our lineage. We didn't all come from Lucy, specifically. But like that species is in our lineage. They are hominids, right? They're in this pile of human-like apes. So like, again, I can't stress this enough. You keep talking about the size of the foot and all this stuff. Even if I believed you, it doesn't change that much about like the big picture here. It might be interesting. Oh, neat, it's a new species. Doesn't disprove human evolution or even come any close to that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you said in a tweet to call, and yeah, I'm. You say we're apes. I know that we're not apes.
How are we not apes?
We're created separately.
So let's run through this. Let's brute force it together. Let's together. We're gonna brute force this. We're gonna go right through it. Do you think that humans are animals?
No.
Okay. Are we mammals?
Yeah.
We are mammals. Okay. So and how do you know that we're mammals?
Because of the way we reproduce.
Not all mammals reproduce like us, but the vast majority of mammals are placental like us, yeah? And the actual definition of a mammal is mammaries. We lactate, right? And we have fur, okay? So here's the thing. Is a Subaru a type of car, right? A Subaru is a type of car. Can we agree on that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, like, if I were to say to you, yes, a Subaru is a car, but it's not a vehicle, would that make any sense?
You say it like that. I just know that we're created separate.
Well, I'm trying to understand this with you, right? If I say that a Subaru is a car, but it's not a vehicle, that doesn't work, right? A mammal is a type of animal.
Vehicle.
All mammals are animals. A mammal is a classification of animals. So if we say humans are mammals, but they're not animals, it's kind of like saying a Subaru is a car but not a vehicle. It doesn't really, really make sense, right?
Yeah, we're created separately.
Okay, so let's assume you're right. Let's assume that we were made separately. Sure, why not? But classification's still a thing, right? And so, what is an animal? Like we know we're alive. We're gonna brute force. We're gonna go all the way through this. We know we're alive, right? So we're living things. What kind of living things are we? Well, we look at our cells. It all comes down to cells. We're motile. We have cell membranes. We don't have hard cell walls. We definitely have nuclei that are packaged up, and then we have a membrane-bound organelles, right? Okay, so we know we're eukaryotes, and because we aren't autotrophic, we don't have chloroplasts or anything like that. Okay, so we can pretty well say we're probably mammals, maybe fungi. We'll get there later. We look at ourselves and we say, okay, we're multicellular, right? That makes sense. We don't reproduce by like filamentous budding or anything like that. Kind of straying a little bit away from fungi there, but also there's the whole situation of us having this spinal cord, right? So definitely not fungi now. We got past that. So we're in the phylum Chordata. We can get in there. What else about us? Well, we have these crazy... We know we're mammals. We got through that. We got through mammals. We also have these thumbs going on. Crazy opposable thumbs. If you look at the tips of our fingers, we have fingernails. We don't have claws. We have these reduced canines. We have a reduced sense of smell. Really, really good vision, right? We're getting closer and closer. We're now in primate territory, right? So we're definitely primates. Check out my butt. Still don't have a tail. So that's going on. We have a kind of a short, stiff lower back. I've got really, really flexible shoulder joints. Definitely leaning more towards ape now. Also, I've got a hyoid bone going on in here, so that's going to land me in the hominin clade. And we move right on up to Homo sapiens by things like, so I make stone tools, so I'm un homo. I can control fire. I'm past Homo erectus. Got a big old honking brain and a flat, stupid face and a gross, tiny mouth. So definitely Homo sapiens. Like, you can go through this step by step, and you're gonna get the same answer all the time. Humans are apes. We are primates. We are mammals. We are animals. Those are the things that we are. If you want to believe we're created separately, I'd love to talk about it with you, but like, that is the definition of us.
It's hard to believe, like, Homo erectus, like, they're around for like maybe over 1.5 million years using stone axes. This stone axes, like, in the Bible, it says within 200-300 years, we're using bronze and iron.
Well, the Bible is wrong.
The Bible's very wrong on that.
with Homo erectus is actually the focus of my research. Like, they're one of my favorite species ever. And you're right, they were along for a very long time. They were the most successful species of human in excuse me, I'm burping as I just ate a drink of stuff. I'm so gross. I'm so sorry. They were the most successful species in the Homo lineage so far. They were around for a long time. And they had, the hand axes weren't literally like a chopping axe. It was called an Acheulean hand axe. So it's kind of this triangular stone that you'd use for whacking stuff. And that's also debated. We were still arguing maybe they were actually using that as like a source of smaller flakes. Who knows? But what we do know is we have strong evidence that they were able to control fire. That goes back round about 1 million years. They were definitely cooking their food, at least, like the evidence we have shows they were cooking as far back as 800,000 years. Probably before then, but that's what we got hard evidence for. They were cooking food over a fire. They were making fire, controlling it deliberately, cooking food on it, making stone tools, probably had clothing because of how far they spread out over the world, almost certainly spoke. And there's a lot of debate in the biological anthropological community about like how we even classify them, because they evolved in Africa 1.8 million years ago and immediately start spreading out all across Europe and Asia and Indonesia. Like we find this place in Dmanisi, Georgia. It's got some of my favorite fossils ever at 1.8 million years old. And just the variation in that one site alone, you could make the argument there's like 4 or 5 different species there. And so you'll get this kind of difference in the crowd where you have Homo erectus sensu latu, lucens, Homo erectus sensu strictu, specifically this one kind. And these guys are actually Homo pekinensis, and these guys are actually Homo floresiensis, and these guys are actually Homo ergaster. And you know what I mean? So like, yeah, they were on for a long time and they did a lot with stone tools. Isn't that freaking dope? And then you look at human civilization, we did a lot with stone tools too. Our species did a ton of stuff with stone tools. And then we started getting into melting metal and stuff. And we went that way pretty quickly, like rapidly growing. The time difference between like the first like metal tool, the bronze tool, the time between that and right now with you on this horrifying machine of silicon and glass, watching my ugly mug burp into the microphone like a freaking caveman. The time between those two events and the production of the first stone tools to then, tiny little thing. And so like, yeah, dude, it's freaking cool. It's radical. It's wild. It doesn't do anything to make the case that we're not animals or we're not apes or that we're not special. It's just cool. Like, I think, like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to just ramble at you, but, like, I think you're seeing these amazingly cool things, and you're trying to find, like, a bone of contention with them, and you're missing out on the fact that they're just fucking cool.
I just, like, stone axes for, like we haven't...
Hand axes. Hand axes. They whacked at them.
And there's like, these are humans.
Yeah.
Like they're humans. They're ancestors. They're descendants of Adam and Eve. They weren't around for a million years looking at a stone axe. Like, humans are smarter than that.
So here's the thing. It depends on how you use the term human. It depends on what you mean by human. Because if I tell you humans evolved 200,000 years ago in Africa, I would be correct because I'm talking about Homo sapiens. But if I said humans evolved 2.6 million years ago in Africa, I would also be correct because I could be talking about Homo habilis. Anything in the genus Homo can be called a human. So yeah, they were humans, but they weren't our species. Our species is only 200,000 years old, and we use stone tools for most of that as well.
And there's absolutely no evidence of an actual Adam or Eve.
We'll get there too. We'll get there.
There's a whole thing on that one too.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
That's also a complete, total mislead used by theists all the time to confuse people who don't understand how genetics work.
Yeah, talking about Y chromosome Adam and mitochondrial Eve.
Yeah. And how you can actually end up with two of those and not actually have just those two as the origins. So,
dash my own eyeballs out like Oedipus if I have to go through that shit. But yeah, like that's like, are you understanding? Like, are you smelling what I'm stepping in here, Dan? Are you understanding what I'm talking about? Like, it's just what you're saying are all these really cool things that we know about humans. Things that give us a tremendous amount of evidence for human evolution and the history of human civilization. I could go on and on for hours about those Homo erectus fossils in Dmanisi and the amazing things they teach us about like human life and culture and what we are fundamentally. And you're going to look at it and say, well, yeah, but also Jesus and stuff. And like, I just don't understand why you're taking that extra step. Why not just see this as the beautiful, cool enough stuff that it is?
I look at Homo erectus, like the cranium size would have been still within the range of humans.
The very lower range. The very upper range of Homo erectus was within the very low range of Homo sapiens. So, no. And there's also potentially intermediates between them. It's kind of debated as to whether or not Homo erectus are our direct ancestors or whether we have Homo heidelbergensis as an intermediary in there. Like, again, the damnable misery of this field of study is that we actually have too many human fossils going back several millions of years, and it's really hard to put them all in order because if you take a look at the skeletons between Jim and I today, you might say we're different species. You know what I mean? If you look back far enough back, it's one of us is this weird, skinny, large-headed nerd, and one is a dashingly handsome gentleman. And so, like, if you if you look at the variation in human populations at this moment, you know, a bioanthropologist of the future might try to separate us into different species, and that's the problem that we have now, is that there are way smarter scientists than I'll ever be who are arguing that Homo habilis doesn't actually exist. It's just kind of this wastebasket species. There's this weird intermediary, and maybe Homo rudolfensis is actually the same thing as Homo habilis. Maybe they existed at the same time and they're different species. Maybe they're not. Maybe one's just freaking weird looking. We have Australopithecus sediba and these things that we have like only one fossil of, and we're not sure. Is this a strange one or is it a different species? It's in a new place at a new time with new technology. Does that mean something? Like, half the point of this field of any field of study, especially dealing with the past, is here's the information, what do you do with it? And what I keep trying to get across to you is that, like, if you take away every bit of our interpretation and just look at the bones on the ground, these are not humans, these are not evidence of this and that, these are brown lumps in the dirt, they still tell us an awful lot. And what they tell us just at face value, even if you don't believe our interpretations, at face value, they debunk the claims of the Bible.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Were you saying Artie? Were you talking about Artie?
I didn't mention Ardipithecus, no. I didn't mention Ardipithecus.
I thought you did, sorry.
No. I mentioned Australopithecus sediba. Ardipithecus ramidus is cool, but, like, he's just one dude. And I encourage you to check out, there's another great YouTube channel out there. You know, if you go over to my channel, just look up Forrest Valkai. I did a video on what is a human. And I detail out why this is such a tough question for this reason. And the person I did that video with is Erica Gutsit-Gibbons. She's a bioanthropologist PhD student. She studies this stuff immensely more than I do. And
she's got a page-by-page debunk of
contested bones.
Yeah.
Yes.
She, for those of you who don't want to read the book because there's good reasons. She actually goes through that book page by page and then presents all the evidence that debunks pretty much every claim they make. Yeah. They may get one or two things right.
You have to have a little bit of truth and a good lie.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure they think they're lying.
No, that's the problem with it.
So I don't want to go quite that far. But yeah, there's definitely, that entire book is, you can just go through page by page, go look for real evidence and find out where they're completely mistaken on almost everything they say.
Right. And that's the thing, Dan, is that what I hope you understand from this is that what you're presenting to us here, and this is not to shame you, you've bought into this narrative that these people are making money by selling you. That's their job, is just to come out here and say, oh, evolution's not true and here's why. But none of these things are new. This is some answers in Genesis level just hogwash of people who sometimes are scientists who also believe in God, and therefore they're going to twist everything they know about science to the point where it comports with this, with the Bible. And it just doesn't stand up to reason. And I'm not the arbiter of science knowledge here. Again, what I'm trying to get across is none of this is new info. Nothing you're saying here is actually any kind of challenging to anybody who knows how this stuff works. And I encourage you to go look up other people like Erica who study this stuff for a living. And who can tell you, like he said, line by line, why books like that and claims like that just don't hold water.
Okay. Well, just saying what you're saying, debunking the Bible, nothing debunks the Bible, so.
Except the Bible.
Except the Bible.
The Bible debunks the Bible quite a bit.
Jesus said that we were created.
So what?
And he can't lie.
Let me ask you a question, Dan. Serious question. Do you believe that, any part of the Bible is wrong?
Oh, wow. What a question. Yeah. Oh, what's the follow-up question here?
That's a simple question. Do you believe that the Bible is completely infallible, or do you think that there's some parts of it that have to be interpreted differently? Do you think there's some parts that have maybe mistranslated over the years? Or do you think, page by page, cover to cover, it is a perfect book, it has no errors in it?
It's God-breathed. It's
a yes or no question.
It's God's word.
Dan, that's a yes or no question.
It's pretty simple.
It's the truth.
Okay, so let me ask you a quick question, Dan. Just in your understanding here, were humans created before or after animals?
After.
Okay, so then you would agree with Genesis chapter 1 here, where it says that God made Adam and Eve together. Pardon me. This is Genesis chapter 1. He makes all the animals in the water. And the water brings forth every living creature that moves, winged birds, beasts of the field, blah, blah, blah. This is all in chapter 1 here. And then later on in the chapter, he says, now let's make man in our image and our likeness. And he makes women and men together at the same time to have dominion over the animals that he just created. So he makes the animals first, then he makes humans. That's what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then you would disagree then with chapter 2. Because in chapter 2 here, right after that, the same page, he makes Adam, and then he says that it's not fit for Adam to be alone. I will make helpers for him. So out of the ground, God made every beast of the field and every bird of the heavens and brought them to the man to decide, and Adam decides what to call all of them. And then after that, he puts Adam to sleep, takes one of his ribs, and makes woman. So in chapter 2, he makes men, then the animals, then woman. So chapter 2 is incorrect, is what you're saying.
Chapter 2, Genesis 2:19, it said, "Now the Lord God," you can put "had formed," he's saying that he had formed already, it was a summary from chapter 1.
Okay.
Why would the summary be different than chapter 1? Most summaries tend to follow the exact same flow that they did in the book to make them make sense. And so now you're just interpreting the book and attempting to harmonize the fact that you have two completely different stories of Genesis all in the same book. And those aren't the only differences, right? In one, God is seen as omnipotent, and the other one, God doesn't know where Adam is.
That's true. There are several times where God doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, and you can harmonize that. There are apologetics, but now you're interpreting the book, and so you can't make the claim that the book is 100% accurate, have this type of inaccuracy, and then just apply your own interpretation to the book and still have it be 100% accurate. Because now you just can't do that. It just doesn't work that way.
There's also...
And that's not the only one that's there.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah.
Genesis 32:30, Jacob said, I have seen God face to face, and my life has been preserved. That's what he says. And then you go over to John, book of John, chapter 1:18, no man has seen God at any time. So is it... What's going on? You know what I mean? Like, if you want to say, well, this one's misinterpreted, okay, there's 1,000 more like that.
Yeah.
I should have brought my Bible from home. I've got all these written in.
Yeah. And you can also look at what did Jesus ride into Jerusalem on? An ass or a horse?
Right. It's both, actually.
It's both, actually. And why is it both? It's to fulfill two completely different so-called prophecies is the only reason for it.
Mm-hmm. He also makes, here in Genesis, he makes the heavens and the earth, and then he makes the stars later. But in the book of Job, he says that the stars were all singing before he laid the foundations of the earth. How are they singing before he made them?
How do stars sing? They're not...
That's another good question. In Revelation, it says that the stars will fall from the sky and land on earth. Stars are millions of times bigger than the earth. How would they land on the surface of something?
Have you seen the movie Greenland?
No.
How, like, John was interpreting a vision of what he saw. I mean, the word stars, what does he know? Like, you seen Greenland, how...
Okay, so then he was wrong.
The atmosphere?
He was wrong.
Yeah, he was wrong, and your statement that the Bible is 100% accurate isn't true. You can't have both things here. It's either 100% accurate or it isn't, and if John was wrong, then guess what? The Bible is not 100% accurate.
Well, maybe he didn't have the word that we have now.
Right, but that's the thing, man. If I don't have the word for something and I tell you something that isn't true, I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. So John was wrong, and then it's in the Bible. So there's something in the Bible that's wrong, right?
Well, we'll all be resurrected one day, and we'll...
That's not an answer. I got another one for you, and we'll make this the last one there, Dan. I just want to know, like, in chapter 1, we'll go back to Genesis, easy peasy stuff, right? He, in verse 3, makes light, but then later on, he goes on to make plants, but then after that, he makes the sun and the moon. So how did plants survive without sun, and how was there light without stars?
I don't have all the answers, but...
Right.
And that's the thing, man, is like what you're doing here is you're carrying this massive baggage, a millstone around your neck, if you will. And you're trying to justify and make excuses for this. That's just plain wrong. There's so many things in this book that just are not true. Factual inaccuracies, historical inaccuracies, scientific impossibilities, things that don't make any freaking sense to anybody. And you're caught up with this baggage of saying, no, it has to be right. And if it doesn't make sense, if it doesn't fit with my logic, then I must be wrong and something else is here. There's some deep secret here and we'll all be resurrected. Like, what I want to ask you, Dan, and I mean this, would you ever use this kind of thinking for absolutely anything else, ever?
What do you mean? What kind of thinking?
This faith-based thinking.
I've read the Bible.
I have also read the Bible.
I've read the Bible.
I have also read the Bible, and I've also read other books, which is why I don't believe the Bible. Like, I want to understand, like, why do you have this baggage that you're carrying, and would you use it for anything else? Would you ever, if I were to sit here and talk to you about, pick your favorite thing, why it stormed today, and you're like, well, yeah, it stormed because some clouds formed, and then there was lightning. No, you don't understand. It was actually Gilgamesh who called the storm into existence, and you're like, no, that's not. But hey, we'll all meet Gilgamesh someday. We'll all go back to the Euphrates, and we'll all be there, and it'll like. if I gave you the exact same kind of thinking you're giving me, the exact same kind of arguments, would you believe me? Would you do what you're doing right now for anything else? If I asked you how planets form, if I asked you about plate tectonics, if I asked you where disease came from, the Bible says you can cure leprosy by sprinkling the blood of a dove on it. Now we have medicine, yo.
Only for the rich people.
Only for the rich people,
Yeah,
right.
the poor people have a whole different set of spell to cast.
Flip, dude. Like, that's what I'm trying to get across. I don't understand. Would you use this kind of faith-based thinking that you're using for anything else ever in your life?
Well, there's only one Jesus in the Bible. I've read the Gospels. And
again, you're not answering the question.
That's not the question. Would you use faith for anything else? Would you ever take any other proposition, anything else, with the same kind of faith that you're using for this?
Let's say your car doesn't work. You go out today to start your car, it doesn't start. Do you use a faith-based process and just say, if I pray enough, the car will start? Or do you actually attempt to maybe take it to a mechanic or diagnose it yourself? What do you do? Do you just pray over it? Do you just say, it'll resurrect when I'm dead? What's your process for figuring out what's going on with your car when it doesn't start in the morning?
The car. Well, when I look at everything around us, I don't see it as faith. I see it as a creation. Everything.
It's not an answer to the question. What's the process you use to determine why your car won't start?
What's the process I use? I try the key or whatever.
Right, but like that's what he's asking. If you tried the key, you're not using faith.
Yep.
You should just believe, right?
You should just pray to start the car.
Why wouldn't you do that?
You're a person of faith. You have great faith. You have faith in the Bible and faith in God. Why wouldn't God
The Bible
start
says
the
if
car?
you have the faith of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain.
Right.
Why wouldn't you just pray?
I think the faith is like believing that the fins can change into feet.
That's not an answer. We're asking you, would you use faith for anything else ever in your life? That is the question.
Well, I watched one of your videos. Was it? I don't know if it's a Pachycetus or one of those creatures, and turns into a whale eventually. Evolves over millions and millions and millions of years, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, Pachycetus is a whale ancestor. Dan, I'm going to ask you one more time, and if you won't answer the question, we're just going to end the call, because I have other questions for you, but if you're not going to be honest and answer it, there's no reason to go with it. Would you use faith in any other situation in your life besides what you're doing right now?
Would I use faith for my car?
Would you use faith for anything?
Is that what you're asking?
Anything. Would you ever use the kind of faith-based thinking you're using here in any other circumstance?
It's hard for me to understand what you're asking me.
That may be part of the problem.
Yeah. Is faith a reliable path to the truth? Is faith a reliable way to know true things?
Faith is, I don't know, like faith in my belief in God. That's reliable.
Is faith a reliable way to know what is true?
Well, with the Bible, yes.
So only the Bible.
It's only the Bible.
So if I have faith that you're 4 gerbils in a human suit, are you in fact 4 gerbils in a human suit if I have enough faith?
Yeah, I don't know. You asked me the questions, but
I am asking you the question.
Like say the Pachycetus, how does that tail turn into a 25-foot?
I can get into it with you, but I don't believe you're going to actually have an honest conversation with me. Let me ask you a question, dude. The Bible condones and justifies slavery. And here in America, slave masters used the Bible to then tell their slaves that what they were doing was justified. People who wanted to keep slaves used the Bible to justify it, because in the Bible it tells you how to keep slaves, where to get them, how hard to beat them. Is that good? Is that true? It's in the Bible. Should we take a faith-based position on this and say, hey, it's in the Bible, so it's right? Or should we say rationally, owning another person is wrong. Therefore, this part of the Bible sucks. We're not going to participate with it.
Slavery, I'm against slavery. And Paul talked about ending slavery.
Yeah,
did he?
In
Really?
Exodus, it gives you explicit instructions on how to do it. It tells you that if you beat your slave so that they don't die within 2 days, that's allowed. And you're only to be punished if you beat them so badly that they die within 2 days of the beating.
Well, the Old Testament, moved on to the New Testament now.
Yeah, the Ten Commandments are in the Old Testament too, right? So we should forget about those for sure?
Well, that's true.
And being gay is also in the Old Testament, not in the New.
Well, yeah, so we should
just kind of throw that out. And apparently many Christians today have thrown out the don't get tattoos thing.
Right. Don't touch the skin of a dead pig. I still play football, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So maybe you're right there, but I don't think you are, because you can go either way with that depending on, and that's a big problem with the Bible. But anyway, you are one of the nicest three gerbils in a human suit to have called. And I have complete faith that you are, in fact, three gerbils in a human suit.
We have a book that says it.
Yeah. If we don't now, we'll write one.
We'll write one, and then it's true.
Yeah, then it'll be true. But everything that evolution is simply a fact. You can go look at it. It's the change in allele frequency in a population over time. That's all it is.